Welcome back to another Four Ways collaboration where four turners take the same idea and put their unique spin on it. Today I'm pleased to announce that we're going to have a special guest, Alan Stratton of As Wood Turns. If you're not familiar with Alan, he's a methodical teacher with very creative ideas, and I know you're going to be interested in seeing what he does with this project. After you watch this video, be sure to check out the links to the other three in this series. I'll have the links in the video description below. I love turning boxes. They present many design challenges and some unique turning challenges, especially fitting the lid. If you've turned a few boxes and you want to up your game a little bit or do something a little more challenging, keep watching. Because in this project, suggested by Thomas Slav, we're going to turn a box with feet. It doesn't require any fancy, expensive carving equipment or power carving, as I'm going to demonstrate. So for this project, I found a lovely piece of spalted sycamore. It's been hanging around my shop for years, so it's bone dry. It's approximately 4.5 inches, I think, the size of the box it'll make. Again, it's going to be cross grain. The grain is going this way. It's about 2 5/8 inch thick. I'm going to cut circles out of both these, and this one I'll probably cut a little bit thinner for the lid, so I don't have as much to turn away. I'm going to put a knob on it. I looked for my scrap bin, and I found some maybe paduc or some other wood as possibility, but I also found some bubinga toy parts that a friend of mine had given me, so I think I'll figure out how to turn this into a knob. As always on a new or a complex project, I like to sketch something out. It doesn't have to be perfectly to scale, but it gives me an idea when I get on the lathe how to start my project, and maybe how to make variations of it when I get to a point and have to make a design change. In this particular case, I'm going to use cross grain wood. I'm going to turn a contrasting knob. I'm going to have this bead at the top and a bead on the base, and it's going to have an in-fitting lid. And it's going to have 3 feet. Now first we're going to turn the base. This is going to be the top of the box. This is going to be the bottom. I'm using my shop-made screw chuck. And here's the back of it, so you can see how I put a strap in there to keep that carriage bolt from, or lag screw rather, from turning on me. And this makes for a pretty good hold. Bring up tailstock support just in case. But here's how I'm planning on shaping the base of this box with a tenon. I'm going to make a tenon like this, just outside the box. That'll give me enough room to be able to shape it when I reverse it. And basically it's going to be based on the bottom of the box, like that. And I'm going to come inside that a certain ways with a recess. But I'm going to grab it from here, but I'm going to go ahead and hollow some of that out while I have the opportunity. Okay, I turned the blank round over the bottom a little bit and add a tenon, and here I'm kind of flattening the base a little bit using a detail gouge. And I come in here to kind of clean up that tenon. It needs to be a dovetail tenon for the jaws that I'm going to be using, so I've got to keep it clean. Cleaning up. Yeah, that's cutting cleaner than it was. Okay, it's round. I'm going to make the fattest part of the bowl about 2/3 up here, so that's going to be right about probably there. That'll be the widest part. So I don't want to touch that line. I'll shape most of that when I get this thing reversed, but I can take a little bit more off the bottom, I think, here. Now, just a little bit here. Visualize the shape. This has got to come down some, but I can only do that when I reverse it. I'm going to hollow this out some now because I think it's going to be easier than when I jam chuck it later, when I finish the inside and reverse this to clean up the bottom legs. Got a little bit of a divot to deal with, but not much. I'm going to still leave that proud and clean up that toward the very end. I'll leave the legs somewhat thick for the time being, so and I want to have enough meat there when, you know, it gets clamped down by a chuck. It's not going to crush it. So I'm going to take out some of this here down to just about that distance, almost. Maybe not quite. So let's just touch it. Alright, now we're going to start hollowing it out a little bit. No more than not even quite 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to leave that dimple there to help me center this. And I'm not going to worry about trying to get that too clean. Alright, let's go ahead and take this off and reverse chuck it. Largest chuck I have, a Techno-Tool, earlier Titan version with what they call power grip jaws. Well, actually these are record power jaws. They're interchangeable with Nova size. I'm not going to make this as hard as I can, or I'm liable to shear that off. I'm just going to make it snug. Now what I want to think about is kind of refining the top before I hollow it. I don't need to take it down much, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Let's get this tool rest. Right. I think I'll pick up the cut right about here. And shape it to that line. Alright, I'm going to put just a bit of a bead right here. Then there's going to be a recess. So I need to round that corner over just a little bit. It's part of the bead. And this may be a mistake, but I'm going to cut that bead with this old 1/4 inch Harbor Freight piece of spindle gouge that I flattened to make it a beading tool. It might work well for this project, we'll see. I'll just put it here on the flat, on the tool rest, and just spin it around a little bit. I hope I didn't get too much tear out. Now that's got a pretty clean bead, and I'll take this down to that just below the bead as well, and then I will come down and put a recess right there on that mark. And then right there at the base of the bead. I'll keep a continuous curve. I'll come in there just at the base of that bead. Okay, I got to bring this side of the bead down a little bit, so I'm going to use the bowl gouge for that and just sweep it around. And let's go ahead and take out some of this waste wood. Now I'm going to use a box scraper to put in a recess here. I want to go down a little ways because I want the lid to really be slightly below that surface. Just using a regular box scraper. Lift the handle, put it straight in. And that ledge doesn't have to be too wide. I like that. Come in like that just to mark it. And now we're going to go a little bit deeper here. So here's the ledge right here. The end of the ledge. So come in there with a negative rake scraper, get a little cleaner shoulder. Come in at just a slight angle. And there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish hollowing. I'm going to switch to a 1/2-inch bowl gouge to get a little more of that bulk of that removal, then I'll start fine tuning. I'll hollow it all the way out. I've got to get that wall thickness appropriate back here, and I've got to figure out how to do that. I know I'm going to get a lot of tear out with a scraper, but I think I need to get under there with a hook nose scraper. I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to twist it slightly to give it a little more negative rake cut. It won't be quite as aggressive. Ooh, gotta put on my face mask. Always wear a respirator or a face mask to protect your lungs. Okay, I've cleaned up underneath the shoulder pretty well, and now it's just time to get a little more out of the body. Now I guess I've got to double check, so almost 2 inches. So I've got, oh, good 1/2 inch more to go. With this grind and that steep wall, I can't cut with this gouge anymore. I've got to get some type of bottom of the bowl gouge. I'm going to use this 5/8 inch that's grounded about 65 degrees so I can go in and still ride the bevel. I'm going to leave a little nib at the bottom to gauge the depth. Sanded it throughout at 240, and now I'm going to use some abrasive paste to give the inside a nice silky feel. Just rub it in there, get lots of it before I turn the lathe on. I think that's got it. I want to crisp up that bead just a little bit, and I'm going to do that with the point tool just to touch it up in there. Get a nice sharp crisp line. It got blurred with sanding. Get the speed back up to over 1,000. And just get right in there. Just to crisp it up a little bit. Now we're ready to turn it around and start working on the feet. Okay, I love a good jam chuck, but what's better than a jam chuck is that if you've got a bead and the appropriate set of jaws, to hold something, that is better. So you just gotta play with it a little bit. Sure it's on the bead. And then snug it up just a little bit. Don't have to get it too tight. And that's just about a perfect circle, so it should leave no significant marks. And that's on there, solid. Okay, now time for me to shape the bottom of this into the leg, and then I'll start working on the legs. So let's try that first. Take light cuts. Okay. That looks pretty good. No tool marks that can't be sanded out. Just a little bit there. If I can't do a shear scrape. Okay. We'll worry about sanding that in a moment. Alright, now we're going to start working on the foot. We're going to get rid of that little dimple there. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay. And let me think about this curve on the inside here. I think it could probably be a little bit steeper, so I'm going to come in from this direction. Sweep out. And that might be it. Still got a little bit to move there. Tool marks clean up, but let's mark those feet. Okay, the top of the legs can't be any deeper than this depth right here, so I'm going to take that and just kind of mark where that is, and I'm going to put a ring here all the way around just to help guide my carving process. Like that. Alright, now we can identify three steps, like a three-legged stool. It'll always balance even if it moves and warps with weather changes. There's three ways. If you're anal retentive, of course, you could take the radius and lay off 6 tracks and take every other one. And of course, you're going to be off. It's going to be 95% correct. We're going to be off just a little bit. The other way is you can also use the indexing on your lathe. But for me, the easiest way is to use this little plexiglass template that I made. And I really appreciate y'all's comments, because I got 2 different comments on this first time I used it. One person indicated instead of me marking the center and then marking each side to where the leg would be, I just needed to offset it a little bit and come to the other side as far as wide it was going to be. And instead of having to make 6 marks, I'd only have to make 3. And I thought that was a tremendous comment. And then longtime viewer Glenn Crandall pointed out that if I drilled a few holes here on the thirds, it'd be a whole lot easier to mark it with a pencil than when I was trying to get out underneath it like this. So I appreciate that comment, Glenn. So we're going to start with the side range on here. I'm going to use this center mark that's specific to this, and come around right here and offset that by just a little bit. Would you know what the marks are not? Or I can easily mark this. I think it goes enough. Just mark that again. It gets weird. It's another bit. Nothing out here. Oh yeah, here it is. Right there. Line that one up. And this one goes enough. And come around here. Do the third one likewise. Pencil lip. Okay, so now I've got three marks. Let me get a better pencil. Here. Okay, so that looks good. Now, in terms of the shape, they're going to be kind of come in a little bit. There's several ways you can cut this. If you got a power carver, you can use that, but that's not necessary. As shown in the clips here, when I first started doing this, I started cutting it out with a coping saw, and it didn't take long at all to cut it out with a coping saw. I'll be honest with you, a lot quicker than I thought it would be. And then you could start cleaning it up with a Dremel burr that I used in my Dremel rotary texturing tool. It was a high-speed steel burr. And then you come back with your Dremel rotary style tool with a sanding
a drum on it and refine it even more, and then you can finally finish up with 2-inch, 3-inch mandrel on your drill or mount it on the lathe. So the approach I'm going to use today is the one I learned from Richard Raffin, and that's use an angle grinder with what they call a flap sander. These are inexpensive. If you're in the U.S., I'll have these links on my Amazon page in the show notes. They're only about $1 a piece, and they last a while. They're pretty powerful, and I think it'll make short work of it. Now, in order to, I played around with trying to mark templates for the legs, and that didn't seem to work very well. So what I did, I've drawn this line right here, which shows about as high as I want to sand. It's the depth of this. I can sand it in a little bit. Here's the feet. That's going to be the center of the feet, and I'm just going to eyeball it and guesstimate it. Halfway between these feet, I've got a mark above the line, and that tells me where the lowest point of this is going to be. I didn't get one here. Yeah, okay, I did get one here. I just can't see it. That's the lowest point, and I've got one on this side. You can barely see it. Okay. And now let me put on my dust mask and have at it. Like I showed you, there's different approaches you can use to carve this, and they all seem to work, but leave it to a production turner like Richard Raffin to find the fastest way to do it, and sometimes fastest is best. Okay, who doesn't love a chucking challenge? How am I going to mount this in order to put a small tenon on one side and shape it as a flame on the other? So I'm going to use my small Rucker Power SC2 chuck. I'm going to just cram this in here like this, and until it's flush against the back. Then I'm going to bring up some tailstock support and turn a tiny little tenon on this end and put it back in the chuck. Get the speed up a little bit. Turn a tiny little tenon right here. Okay, that's all it takes. Now I'm going to take that out and chuck it using that tenon. These jaws call for a parallel tenon, not a dovetail, and this will work just fine. This smaller SC2 chuck is just perfect for these small projects. I'll have a link to where you can get this chuck if you need a small chuck, because it is a great thing. Just waste away some wood here. No, I've got a couple tries for this. Don't make too much of it. One goes wrong. This is recessed at the top. I think I'm going to have it probably turn into a flame. Yeah, okay, so I've got a shoulder here, so I'm going to go ahead and just take a thin parting tool and part it down the middle, and I'll be able to hold this with a collet chuck, as I'll show you in a minute. I think I'll have to make it a little bit smaller though. Part it right here. There we go. Collet chuck's the greatest thing for holding small round pieces like this, and I bought a few extra collets to make it so easy. Instead of getting it to perfect size, I just come up here and find the collet that has a nice snug fit. I think that looks like that's it. So I'm going to open up the collet. Nice tight fit, and boy, that holds it great. Now let's go to the leg and use it. Okay, I have a pretty good idea of where I'm going, but a little bit fuzzy sometimes on the steps to get there. because I haven't done exactly that same thing before, so I'm like turning these bubinga toy parts. So it's slightly concave here to catch a kendama ball, so let me get rid of some of this excess with a 3/8 inch spindle gouge. Just flatten it a little bit. And then I've decided this is going to go into a stopped hole on the lid, and I think I'm going to make it a 1/2 inch. I think that'll give it enough glue bite. So I'm taking a 1/2 inch Forstner bit, measuring it, and this is what I'm going to use calipers to check the size. Just use my beating and parting tool, make a very, somewhere more than a 1/16, less than an 1/8 of an inch deep. With a slight chamfer on it so we can try fit it. Drill, a drill guide to drill bit sizer to double check that. This is such a handy tool, 1/2 inch. And look, that fits there easily, so that ought to go in a 1/2 inch hole without any problem. Alright, now here's, I'm going to cut the base, and I've got to decide what that design is going to look like. And I think I want to flare it out just a little bit to sit on top of the box. So to do that, I need to concave it in just a tiny little bit. Concave it in a little bit, make it a little rounder to sit on a sloped lid. There. And I think I'm going to use a detail gouge for this. And take this down just a little bit. And I think I want to roll it over. Kind of like a 240 grit. And a little 320 grit. And we'll probably do that again. Okay. Take this out. Now I've got to go back over there and find a collet chuck that'll hold that. Okay, I've got this mounted in a 1/2 inch collet chuck. I've got to take this down some because it's too big, and I'm going to be careful with it because there's not a very big tenon holding it. It's very shallow, as we saw when I turned it. Okay, still got a little, I'll make a bit of an OG here, I think. Lock down. So now I'm just going to round this over, take it down some, make a little smaller flame. This part. Okay. That doesn't look too bad. Now I got to think about what can I do to kind of kick it up a level. I'm going to round over this band, make a little more of an OG, and maybe put a tiny little feature here at the base. So let's get rid of that. Look, that's part of it. Okay, and over. And I want a little bit. I think we can pick it off a little bit. Okay. And touch that up with a little sandpaper, and I think we got it. I'm going to put a little sanding sealer on here to just seal that and make it a little easier to do that now than later, I think. Another nice thing about collet chuck for small things is you don't have any knuckle busters or anything that's going to grab you because of the round shape. Let's shine it up real nice. And by the time I get back with some abrasive paste, I think that thing's going to be cured. This ought to make it shine like a new penny. Put it on there while it's still. Okay. And I think now we got We got a good looking knob that'll easily fit in a recess for us.
When you turn a box, you need to think carefully about the sequence, because you're going to have to be able to get back to another part of the box. Typically, when you for most boxes where the grain is running parallel with the lathe bed, you turn the blank between centers, you put a tenon on each side, you remove the base, and you hollow out the lid, and then you're going to use the base as a jam chuck to finish the outside. But when you're doing a cross-grain box, your sequence varies a little bit, because typically you're using a separate piece of flat wood, and it's also a little bit larger. And in my case, the chucking to some extent is also influenced by the need to refine the top to add a knob.
All right, let's go ahead and mount this on the woodworms chuck. When I first cut this, I noticed that this blank was going to be a book match of the bottom, which was kind of neat. And let's hope that shows up in the final box. So I've got that mounted now. Now we're going to start shaping it. So we're going to turn it around. This is too big. It's going to be an inset lids, but I'll refine that in a future step. But meanwhile, let's just go ahead and turn it around. Make sure it clears. That's speed up to about 1300, because this is not a very large part. Alright, now I want to make sure the top is flat as I mark a tenon on here. I think I'll probably be using my smaller chuck, so I'll go ahead and mark about where that tenon's going to be. Going to be somewhere like that. So again, using a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, just going to make that tenon. Sweep out. This tenon is a parallel tenon for the jaws I'm going to be using. I'll make sure we have a nice square corner there. So that's more than generous, so I've got to come down quite a bit. Start shaping this a little bit. And that's a rough start. Okay, let's go ahead and take this off. It's my little cheater bar here. Hole in my screw chuck. I'll tell you what, when these things are on tight, they're on tight. So here's another way to deal with that. Use my chuck. Tighten down on that. Screw chucks are an effective and a secure way of holding a lot of projects. So if you haven't used one, consider it. I'm going to initially flatten this before I start hollowing it. Right at the bottom. Okay, we've still got lots of room. Okay, it's going to fit inside here. I've made this plenty generously large. So let's readjust it a little bit. Now I'll start refining that just a little bit by actually seeing where is it going to fit. It looks like, I think I'm there. Okay, now I'm going to add a lip. So it's going to drop down in there. Being mindful of what I take off this side comes off that side as well. Okay. I think I've got a nice fit now. Now I'm going to put a lip on it. It's less than 1/4 of an inch wide. My 3/8 inch detail gouge is shallower than a regular 3/8 inch gouge and a little pointier, so it works out real well for doing this kind of detail. Alright, let's see how that works out. So now I need to put a recess in the lid to be able to hold this to turn the outside, and I'm not real confident of having that turning while I mark it, so I'm just going to use a pencil, get close, and then evaluate it. And that looks like it's pretty much on the money. So let's go ahead and cut that recess. And the best tool for cutting this recess appears to me to be my 1/2 inch skew. I can come in there at a skewed angle. And it doesn't take a lot. I think that'll hold it just fine. Now I've got to hollow this out a little bit more to get rid of the remnants of that screw chuck. Because of this spalting, this can tear out very easily. Otherwise I'd probably use a scraper. But I'm going to use this bottom of the bowl gouge type of profile, very blunt, and come across here. And that looks nice and clean. I'm not going to get back to the inside, so I've got to sand it and put any decoration in here I want, so let's do a quick sanding job. Turn on the dust extractor. And using a point tool, I think I'm just going to add a couple of rings. Speed back up. Debating on whether this is strong enough in the middle to hold a textured decoration, and I think it is, so let me get in there with a texture. Come in there just off center. And I get a nice little spiral flower. Anytime you texture, you got to frame it. I think I'm going to just cut the inside, raise this up just a little bit more. Just get a little circle in the middle. And a circle on the outside. Maybe one more. And I like that. And as usual, I'm going to use a little abrasive paste. Rub that on. Get that surface nice and smooth. Alright, so let's remove from this chuck and reverse chuck it on the other chuck. So I take that off. I like the deeper jaws on this victory chuck for projects like this, which is a little more standoff room. Now, the challenge is getting that shape for the top. Okay, I'm going to flatten this some. I want to leave maybe a 1/16 of an inch because I'll need that to allow for the drill hole. Okay, that takes care of that. I think I'm going to go ahead and drill that hole so I'll have a feel for what the knob looks like in there. So we're going to drill a 1/2 inch hole. I think 1/2 inch is what we have on the knob. I'm sure it is. And we're going to drill it deep enough to get some glue in there, but not so deep that we allow that hole, that spike to punch through on the other side. That's my principal concern. Slow the speed down to no more than 500 or so, and then we'll just slowly and now we've got that hole. Let's kind of see how this fits. That fits in there real well. Glue will hold it. Now I want to make sure that I blend in, have enough flat area there to blend into, so when I come up from the side. So let's do that. We're going to come in from here and cut downward. Let's get rid of this drill chuck. I'm going to use this 3/8 inch spindle gouge. I think it'll work just fine for that. Get the speed up. And just slowly take off that corner. And blend this. Okay. I've got a sense for what that looks like. I'm trying to get this profile right, and I'm not sure that I have it right. I'll take this down just a little bit. Pick up this. Okay, that blends in nicely. My original design had an option for a bead up near the top, so I think I'm going to add that. I think I'll add that bead right about here. And I'm going to use a D-way beading tool for that. Okay. Of course, now as a result, I need to undercut that bead a little bit, so I'm going to use a detail gouge for this to get into the base of that bead. So it'll stand proud. That looks good. Now I need to do the same thing on the bottom. For whatever reason, maybe it was off center, this wallowed out the hole a little bit, so it wasn't going to be as clean a fit, as snug a fit as I wanted on my knob. So a little trick I did is a little thin CA and then wrap some thread in there to build that up to give it more of a mechanical fit. Now it's a nice snug fit that the glue will hold real well. Here's some of the final shots. I wished I'd have sealed it with some lacquer sanding sealer before I put the white coat Danish oil because it went a little too dark on me.
Don't miss the opportunity to see how Richard, Tommy, and Alan each took the same project and did something different with it. Your questions and comments are important, so leave them below. And remember, y'all stay safe. Come on back. You hear?